Most people don't fail because they are broken beyond repair. They fail because they keep trying to decorate a life that needs reconstruction. They change the surface, new goals, new routines, new promises, while the foundation quietly cracks underneath. And then they wonder why everything keeps collapsing back into the same patterns. At some point, life taps you on the shoulder and asks a hard question. Are you willing to become someone different? Or do you just want things to look different? Because there is a difference. One requires comfort. The other requires courage. Rebuilding yourself is not about fixing what others see. It's about confronting what you've been avoiding when no one is watching. It's about recognizing that your habits, your thinking, and your standards have been perfectly designed to produce the life you're living right now. And if that truth makes you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Discomfort is often the invitation to growth. This is not a speech about overnight success or dramatic transformation. It's about quiet decisions made repeatedly that slowly change your direction. It's about reclaiming control, not from the world, but from the version of yourself that settled for less. Responsibility precedes change because nothing meaningful can improve in your life until you decide that you are the primary cause of where you are and the primary solution to where you are going. Responsibility is not about blame or shame. It is about ownership. The moment you say, "This is my life and I am accountable for it," you step out of the role of a victim and into the role of a builder. As long as responsibility is outsourced to people, circumstances, luck, or timing, personal power remains outsourced as well. Change cannot begin where power is absent. Most people delay rebuilding themselves because they are waiting for something external to shift. They wait for motivation, opportunity, approval, or fairness. Responsibility interrupts this waiting game. It says that regardless of what happened, regardless of how unfair or unexpected life has been, the next move belongs to you. This is not denial of hardship, it is refusal to let hardship define the future. When responsibility is accepted, excuses lose their authority. Energy that was once spent justifying stagnation is redirected toward progress. Responsibility also clarifies cause and effect. Every result in life, whether desired or disappointing, is tied to previous decisions, habits, and philosophies. Once this connection is understood, life stops feeling random. Income reflects skills and value provided. Health reflects habits practiced over time. Confidence reflects promises kept or broken with oneself. This understanding can be uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the doorway to growth. Without responsibility, reflection turns into complaint. With responsibility, reflection turns into strategy. When responsibility precedes change, personal growth becomes proactive rather than reactive. Instead of fixing problems only when they become painful, you begin improving before pressure forces your hand. You don't wait until finances collapse to learn discipline. You don't wait until relationships fracture to learn communication. Responsibility creates foresight because it encourages self-examination. It asks, what am I doing daily that is producing these results? And more importantly, what can I do differently starting now? Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it restores dignity. Blame feels protective at first, but it quietly weakens self-respect. Deep down, people know when they are avoiding ownership, and that avoidance erodes confidence. Responsibility, on the other hand, builds inner strength. Even when results are not immediate, knowing that you are doing what you can create stability. You may not control outcomes, but you control effort, attitude, preparation, and response. That control is the foundation of self-respect. Responsibility also shifts focus from entitlement to contribution. Instead of asking what life owes you, you begin asking what value you can bring. This shift changes how you approach work, learning, and relationships. You stop negotiating with standards and start raising them. You understand that rewards follow value, not desire. This mindset encourages continuous improvement because it recognizes that growth is the price paid for better outcomes. Accepting responsibility does not mean carrying unnecessary guilt for the past. It means using the past as information, not as a prison. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you can reinterpret it as training. Mistakes become lessons. Failures become feedback. Responsibility allows you to extract wisdom instead of regret. It replaces self-pity with self-direction. This internal shift often feels subtle, but its long-term effects are dramatic. Responsibility also simplifies decision-making. When you stop blaming circumstances, choices become clearer. You stop asking whether you should act and start asking how you will act. This decisiveness accelerates momentum. Small decisions made consistently under a sense of responsibility compound into major transformation. The discipline to act without external pressure is one of the strongest indicators of long-term success. Ultimately, responsibility precedes change because change requires agency. Without agency, effort is sporadic and dependent on mood or motivation. With agency, action becomes intentional. Life stops happening to you and starts responding to you. Responsibility turns rebuilding from a wish into a process, from hope into structure, from intention into movement. Self-discipline is the foundation because no meaningful rebuilding can survive without structure, and discipline is the structure that holds progress together when motivation fades. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Discipline is practical and reliable. When you decide to rebuild yourself, enthusiasm may ignite the decision, but discipline sustains the process. Without it, goals remain ideas and intentions dissolve into delays. Discipline is not restriction for the sake of control. It is the deliberate choice to act in alignment with long-term vision rather than short-term comfort. Self-discipline begins with governing the small, ordinary moments of the day. These moments often seem insignificant, yet they shape identity. Waking up on time, keeping commitments, finishing what you start, and doing what needs to be done even when it is inconvenient all reinforce an internal standard. Each disciplined action sends a message to the mind that you are reliable. Over time, this reliability becomes confidence. Confidence is not built by affirmation but by evidence, and discipline provides that evidence daily. One of the greatest misunderstandings about discipline is that it is harsh or exhausting. In reality, discipline creates freedom. When you manage your time, money, energy, and focus with intention, you reduce chaos and stress. Undisciplined living creates constant emergencies, rushed decisions, and regret. Disciplined living creates margin, clarity, and choice. It allows you to decide in advance who you want to be and then support that decision through consistent behavior. Self-discipline also strengthens decision-making. When discipline is absent, decisions are driven by impulse, mood, or external pressure. This leads to inconsistency and self-doubt. With discipline, decisions are guided by principles rather than feelings. You don't ask whether you feel like doing something. You ask whether it aligns with your values and goals. This shift reduces internal conflict and builds mental resilience. You become less reactive and more intentional. Discipline plays a critical role in rebuilding self-trust. Many people struggle not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they have broken too many promises to themselves. Each time a commitment is abandoned, self-trust erodes slightly. Discipline reverses this erosion. By keeping small promises consistently, you repair the relationship you have with yourself. This repaired trust becomes the backbone of courage, persistence, and self-belief. Another essential aspect of self-discipline is its compounding effect. One disciplined habit rarely changes a life on its own, but several disciplined habits practiced over time reshape identity and outcomes. Reading a little daily sharpens thinking. Saving a small amount regularly builds financial stability. Exercising consistently strengthens both body and willpower. These actions may not produce dramatic results immediately, but their cumulative impact is undeniable. Discipline turns effort into momentum. Self-discipline also protects you from distraction. Modern life constantly competes for attention, offering comfort, entertainment, and escape. Without discipline, focus is scattered and progress slows. Discipline creates boundaries around time and attention, ensuring that important tasks receive priority over urgent but unimportant demands. This ability to delay gratification is a defining characteristic of personal growth. Choosing what matters most over what feels good in the moment is the essence of rebuilding. Discipline does not require perfection. It requires direction. There will be days of fatigue, frustration, and failure. Discipline does not eliminate these days. It prevents them from becoming permanent. It teaches you to return to the standard quickly instead of abandoning it entirely. This resilience is what separates those who rebuild successfully from those who repeatedly start over. At its core, self-discipline is an act of self-respect. It reflects the belief that your future is worth discomfort today. It is the quiet strength that turns potential into performance and dreams into structure. When discipline becomes part of daily life, rebuilding is no longer dependent on external circumstances. It becomes a personal system, guided by choice and sustained by consistency. Change starts from the inside because the outer world is largely a reflection of internal patterns that have been repeated over time. Circumstances, results, and environments are not random. They are responses to beliefs, attitudes, decisions, and habits operating beneath the surface. When people attempt to rebuild their lives by changing only external factors, new jobs, new routines, new locations, they often experience temporary improvement followed by familiar frustration. This happens because the internal framework that produced the old results remains unchanged. Without internal growth, external change lacks permanence. Internal change begins with awareness. The way you interpret events, speak to yourself, and define success quietly directs behavior. Two people can face the same situation and produce entirely different outcomes because their internal narratives differ. One sees challenge as a signal to grow, the other sees it as evidence of limitation. These interpretations shape effort, persistence, and learning. When rebuilding begins internally, reactions shift before circumstances do. You become less reactive and more reflective, less defensive and more deliberate. Beliefs play a powerful role in shaping what feels possible. If someone believes they are incapable, undeserving, or unlucky, their actions will unconsciously align with those beliefs. Opportunities may appear, but they are ignored or mishandled. Internal change requires examining these beliefs and questioning whether they are facts or conclusions drawn from past experiences. When beliefs are adjusted, behavior follows naturally. Confidence increases not because circumstances improve, but because self-perception evolves. Attitude is another internal element that precedes external success. A negative attitude drains energy and narrows perspective. It encourages avoidance, resentment, and comparison. A constructive attitude, however, expands options. It allows mistakes to be treated as feedback rather than failure. This shift alone can dramatically alter results over time. The same effort applied with a different attitude produces a different outcome. Internal alignment turns effort into effectiveness. Emotional regulation is also central to internal change. Many setbacks persist not because of lack of skill, but because emotions dictate decisions. Impatience leads to quitting too soon. Fear leads to inaction. Pride prevents learning. When emotional awareness improves, reactions become more measured. Instead of being controlled by temporary feelings, you begin responding based on long-term intention. This internal stability creates consistency, and consistency creates progress. Internal change also reshapes identity. Identity determines behavior more powerfully than goals. If someone sees themselves as undisciplined, inconsistent, or unlucky, they will unconsciously act in ways that reinforce that identity. When rebuilding begins internally, identity shifts first. You begin to see yourself as a learner, a builder, someone in progress. Actions then align with this new self-image. Habits that once felt forced begin to feel natural because they match who you believe you are becoming. Values are another internal driver. When values are unclear, choices are reactive and easily influenced. When values are defined, decisions become simpler and more consistent. Internal clarity creates external direction. You no longer chase everything, you commit to what matters. This alignment reduces internal conflict and increases focus. Energy that was once scattered becomes concentrated. Internal change also affects how you interact with others. Communication improves when insecurity decreases. Boundaries strengthen when self-respect grows. Relationships often shift when internal standards rise. Some connections deepen, others fade, but the overall quality improves. External relationships rarely improve without internal adjustment because they respond to what you tolerate, express, and expect. Rebuilding from the inside does not produce instant visible results, which is why many people abandon it. However, it produces lasting transformation. When thinking improves, decisions improve. When decisions improve, habits improve. When habits improve, outcomes inevitably follow. External success becomes a byproduct rather than a pursuit. Life begins to feel less like a struggle against circumstances and more like a response to intentional internal direction. Your philosophy shapes your future because it determines how you interpret life, make decisions, and respond to circumstances long before results appear. Philosophy is not abstract theory. It is the collection of beliefs, values, and principles you live by daily. It influences what you expect, what you tolerate, and what you pursue. Two people can possess the same resources, face the same challenges, and yet arrive at entirely different destinations because their guiding philosophies are different. Long before outcomes are visible, philosophy is already at work. Personal philosophy governs perception. It decides whether you see difficulty as a signal to grow or as a reason to quit. When your philosophy is rooted in responsibility, effort, and learning, setbacks become temporary events rather than permanent identities. If your philosophy is rooted in blame or entitlement, obstacles feel unfair and paralyzing. Perception influences emotion, emotion influences action, and action compounds into results. In this way, philosophy quietly directs the future without drawing attention to itself. Philosophy also shapes standards. Standards determine the minimum level of behavior you are willing to accept from yourself. If your philosophy values comfort over growth, discipline feels unnecessary. If it values progress over ease, discipline becomes natural. Standards decide how much effort you give when no one is watching, how you manage time when you are tired, and how you behave when shortcuts are available. Over time, these private standards become public results. Decision-making is another area ruled by philosophy. Every day presents choices that appear small but carry long-term consequences. Whether you read or scroll, save or spend, speak or stay silent depends on what you believe matters. Philosophy acts as a filter, simplifying decisions by aligning them with long-term vision. Without a clear philosophy, decisions are reactive and inconsistent. With one, choices become intentional and repeatable. Your philosophy also determines how you view failure. Some see failure as proof of inadequacy, others see it as instruction. This difference alone can alter the trajectory of a life. When failure is viewed as information, persistence increases. When it is viewed as identity, effort decreases. Philosophy either encourages learning or discourages action. Over time, these responses accumulate into skill or stagnation. Another powerful role of philosophy is in shaping expectations. Expectations influence effort. If you expect success without growth, disappointment is inevitable. If you expect growth to be challenging, effort becomes sustainable. A realistic philosophy prepares you mentally for difficulty, preventing discouragement. It does not eliminate struggle, but it removes surprise, allowing you to stay engaged when progress feels slow. Philosophy also affects how you relate to time. Some people treat time casually, believing it is abundant. Others treat it as valuable, recognizing that days are limited and seasons pass quickly. This belief influences urgency, focus, and prioritization. Those who value time invested intentionally. Those who don't often wonder where it went. Over years, this difference becomes dramatic. Your philosophy influences relationships as well. It shapes how you communicate, what behavior you tolerate, and how you handle conflict. A philosophy grounded in respect and growth encourages honest dialogue and accountability. One rooted in avoidance or ego leads to unresolved tension. The quality of relationships often mirrors the philosophy behind them. Philosophy is not formed overnight. It is shaped by experiences, mentors, culture, and reflection. However, it can be consciously refined. By examining what you believe about work, success, failure, and responsibility, you begin to take control of the direction your life is moving. Small shifts in philosophy create large shifts in behavior, and consistent behavior creates predictable outcomes. The future is rarely the result of luck. It is the echo of a philosophy practiced daily. Consistency beats intensity because lasting transformation is built through repeated action, not occasional bursts of effort. Intensity feels powerful in the moment. It creates excitement, urgency, and the illusion of rapid change. However, intensity is often fueled by emotion, and emotion is unreliable. When enthusiasm fades, so does effort. Consistency, on the other hand, is rooted in commitment. It does not depend on mood, inspiration, or external pressure. It depends on choice, and choice repeated over time creates identity. Intense effort usually appears dramatic. People reorganize their lives overnight, adopt extreme routines, and set unrealistic expectations. When results do not appear quickly, frustration sets in. This leads to cycles of starting strong and quitting early. Consistency avoids this trap by favoring sustainable actions over impressive ones. It asks for manageable effort that can be maintained even on difficult days. Progress made this way may feel slow, but it is stable. The power of consistency lies in accumulation. Small actions performed daily compound into significant outcomes. A single workout changes little. Months of regular movement reshape health. Reading one page seems trivial. Reading daily expands thinking and vocabulary. Saving a small amount appears insignificant. Saving consistently builds security. Each action alone feels minor, but together they create momentum that intensity alone cannot sustain. Consistency also strengthens discipline and self-trust. When you show up repeatedly, even in modest ways, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable. This internal trust is essential for growth. Many people fail not because they lack ability, but because they doubt themselves due to past inconsistency. Regular follow-through repairs this doubt. Each completed action becomes proof of reliability, which fuels confidence. Another advantage of consistency is adaptability. Intensity is rigid. It often collapses under pressure. Consistency is flexible. It allows adjustment without abandonment. Missing a day does not destroy the process because the focus is on returning rather than quitting. This resilience keeps progress moving forward even during setbacks. Consistency understands that perfection is not required, only persistence. Consistency also reduces resistance. Large, intense efforts create mental friction because they feel overwhelming. Small, consistent actions feel approachable. The mind resists drastic change but accepts gradual improvement. This psychological ease makes habits easier to maintain. Over time, What once required effort becomes automatic. At that point, progress no longer feels forced, it becomes part of routine. In rebuilding yourself, consistency creates structure. It transforms vague intentions into predictable patterns. Instead of relying on willpower each day, you rely on established habits. This reduces decision fatigue and preserves energy for higher-level thinking. Life becomes less chaotic and more deliberate. Progress becomes a system rather than a struggle. Consistency also outperforms intensity in learning. Skills are developed through repetition, not overload. Practicing regularly allows reflection, correction, and refinement. Intense effort often leads to burnout or careless mistakes. Consistent practice encourages mastery. Growth becomes steady rather than erratic. Emotionally, consistency provides stability. Intensity is often followed by disappointment when expectations are not met quickly. Consistency sets realistic expectations and rewards patience. This emotional steadiness supports long-term commitment. Instead of riding waves of motivation, you move forward with calm persistence. Consistency does not reject ambition, it supports it. Big goals are achieved through small actions repeated faithfully. The future is rarely changed by one powerful moment. It is shaped by thousands of ordinary decisions made correctly over time. When effort becomes consistent, improvement becomes inevitable, and progress continues even when excitement fades. Personal growth is a lifelong project because life itself is constantly changing, and each new season demands a stronger, wiser, and more aware version of you. The idea that growth has an endpoint is comforting but unrealistic. Goals may be reached, milestones achieved, and struggles overcome, yet new responsibilities, challenges, and expectations inevitably appear. Growth is not something you complete and move on from. It is something you carry with you, refining it as circumstances evolve. From early life to later years, the skills required to thrive keep shifting. What works at one stage may become insufficient at another. Ambition may need to be balanced with patience. Speed may need to give way to precision. Confidence may need to be tempered with humility. Personal growth allows you to adapt without losing direction. Without continuous growth, success becomes outdated and eventually unsustainable. Lifelong growth encourages humility. The willingness to learn implies the recognition that there is always more to understand. This mindset keeps ego in check and curiosity alive. When people believe they have arrived, learning slows and stagnation begins. Growth maintains openness, allowing you to absorb new ideas, perspectives, and methods. This openness keeps thinking flexible and relevant. Personal growth also deepens self-awareness over time. Early growth often focuses on skills and achievement. Later growth tends to focus on emotional intelligence, values, and purpose. As awareness expands, priorities shift. Success becomes less about accumulation and more about alignment. Growth helps refine not just what you pursue, but why you pursue it. This clarity prevents burnout and regret. Another reason growth must be lifelong is that habits drift without attention. Even strong disciplines weaken when neglected. Mindsets become rigid. Comfort can quietly replace effort. Continuous growth acts as maintenance. It sharpens awareness and renews standards. It ensures that progress does not slowly reverse. Growth is not only about advancement, it is about preservation of what has already been built. Personal growth also improves how you handle failure and change. Life rarely follows a straight line. Unexpected events disrupt plans and challenge identity. Growth equips you with resilience, perspective, and adaptability. Instead of resisting change, you learn to respond to it constructively. Each disruption becomes an opportunity to strengthen character rather than a reason to withdraw. As growth continues, the focus often shifts outward. Early development is self-centered by necessity, focused on survival and stability. Later growth includes contribution, leadership, and legacy. Personal growth enhances your ability to positively influence others. Better communication, patience, and understanding allow relationships to deepen. Growth extends beyond personal benefit and becomes a shared advantage. Lifelong growth also sustains meaning. Without growth, routines become repetitive and goals lose significance. Growth introduces challenge and discovery, which keep life engaging. Learning something new, improving a skill, or gaining insight renews enthusiasm. Growth keeps life from shrinking into comfort zones and predictable cycles. Importantly, growth respects time. It acknowledges that improvement does not need to be rushed. Small refinements accumulated over decades produce profound transformation. This long-term view reduces anxiety and comparison. Growth becomes personal rather than competitive. Progress is measured against who you were, not against others. Personal growth being lifelong does not imply constant pressure to improve every moment. It implies awareness and willingness. There are seasons for effort and seasons for reflection. Growth adapts to both. It allows rest without regression and ambition without imbalance. Over time, growth becomes less about striving and more about refinement, alignment, and depth. When growth becomes a lifelong commitment, rebuilding yourself never feels complete, but it also never feels hopeless. Each stage offers a chance to build better than before, guided by experience rather than urgency. As we bring this together, remember this: rebuilding yourself is not a reaction to failure. It is a response to awareness. Awareness that you can think better, act better, and become better. Every result in your life has been shaped by choices, habits, and beliefs, and the moment you choose to improve those, your future begins to shift. You do not rebuild by rushing or by wishing for change, but by committing to steady growth, personal responsibility, and disciplined action. The outside world will eventually reflect the work you do on the inside. Rebuilding yourself does not require perfection, comparison, or approval. It requires honesty, patience, and consistency. There will be moments of doubt and delay, but progress belongs to those who keep moving forward even when the results are not yet visible. Each small improvement strengthens the foundation for the next. Over time, those small improvements reshape confidence, character, and direction. Your life is not fixed. Your past does not have the final say. What matters most is the decision you make today to build wiser than yesterday and stronger than before. Good luck on your journey of growth and self-rebuilding. May you stay disciplined, focused, and courageous in the process. Thank you.